The Philippines is rich with historical sites that are certified to be tourist attractions for foreign and domestic alike. These remnants of the past hold stories within their walls. Unfortunately, we cannot go there physically because of the pandemic, but our classmates have compiled the ones that they have already visited. Let's go and see some of them.
The Poway Church, also known as the St. Augustine Church, is located in Poway, Ilocos Norte. Built in the 17th century, it became famous for its distinct Spanish colonial earthquake Baroque architecture, highlighting its enormous buttresses on the sides and back of the building. The bell tower served as a status symbol for the locals. It would ring louder during weddings of prominent clan than of the less privileged. In 1973, Poway Church was declared as a national cultural treasure. Not only that, but in 1993, it was designated as a UNESCO World Heritage Site.
Now, let's go to southern Tagalog and explore the hidden history of Batangas. Batangas is located at the southern part of Luzon and is one of the most historical provinces in the country. One of the ideal places to visit is the Apolinario Mabini Shrine. Apolinario Mabini Shrine is a reverent remembrance to one of the founding fathers of the Philippines, and the shrine shares with the visitor the wealth of history kept within its walls. The shrine is located in Talaga, Tanawan, Batangas. It is dedicated to Apolinario Mabini, a Tanawenyo, the sublime paralytic, and brain of the revolution. The Mabini Shrine was inaugurated by then Vice President Carlos P. Garcia and Mrs. Luz Banzon Magsaysay on July 23, 1956. Designed by national artist Juan Nakpil, the Mabini Shrine in Tanawan contains a museum, library, and Mabini's tomb. Inside the museum are artifacts related to his life, including a painting showing him in a hammock being carried to Aguinaldo's camp in Kawit, Cavite. Next stop is the Tanawan Church, or widely known as St. John the Evangelist Parish. It was once an original stone church built in the Spanish colonial era. The St. John the Evangelist Church of Tanawan, Batangas, Philippines had loads of history kept within. The first version of the Tanawan Stone Church was constructed in the year 1732 at Bonbon, the old name for a town that was situated at the northern shore of Taal Lake. Shortly, 22 years later, the town along with the church was destroyed by the violent eruption of the Taal volcano. The only surviving parts of the stone church today are its concrete foundations. Another church of the same name was built by the Augustinians in the year 1881, which is also known as the St. John the Evangelist Church. It featured a beautiful facade that had a mix of Romanesque and Renaissance feel. But this was all ultimately taken away, where the church was heavily damaged during the Second World War. It then was rebuilt afterwards in an attempt to imitate the original look. The interior, however, became contemporary, but was just as beautiful as its magnificent exterior. Another church in Batangas that stood the age of time is the Taal Church, also known as Minor Basilica of St. Martin. The original town of Taal was founded by Augustinian missionaries in 1572, and on the banks of the Taal Lake, where the municipality of San Nicolas now lies. Father Diego Espinar led the construction of the town's very first church in 1575. This church was relocated and rebuilt a couple of times due to natural catastrophes. It is dubbed as the largest Catholic church in Asia. The Basilica of St. Martin de Tours is one astounding landmark that sits atop a hill right at the center of Taal, Batangas. It follows the Baroque style and has beautiful columns in its facade. It is made of adobe and coral stones that gave it a distinct appearance.
The St. Raphael the Archangel Parish is located in the heart of the busy streets of Legazpi City and its sports district. Commonly known as the Church of Legazpi or St. Raphael Church, it was built in 1834. Legazpi was formerly called Pueblo Viejo until 1856. It is a place of prayer, meditation, and pilgrimage to many visitors each year. The Labanan sa Legazpi monument was dedicated to the actual Battle of Legazpi that fought between December 2 to 8, 1899 during the Philippine-American War. As the American troops began to lose ground on Luzon, the American soldiers regrouped at Legazpi City and controlled it for the fortification purposes. The main mission of the Americans was to hold the city until the reinforcement troops arrived at the Albay Gulf. The Philippine soldiers were also looking to take the entirety of Luzon and push them back to surrender. The pagdaong sa Legazpi Monument was also dedicated to when the American forces landed on April 1, 1945. Together with the guerrillas, the San Bernardino Strait was recovered from the Japanese.
Libingan ng mga Bayani National Shrine or Hero Cemetery, formerly known as the Republic Memorial Cemetery, is a national cemetery within Fort Andres Bonifacio. This was established in 1947 by the Philippine government as a tribute to the fallen Filipino soldiers that fought during World War II. Those who were buried in Libingan ng mga Bayani include Medal of Valor awardees, presidents, secretaries of national defense, Chiefs of Staff of the Armed Forces of the Philippines, active and retired military personnel of the AFP who died in line of duty, veterans of Philippine Revolution, World War I, World War II, and recognized guerrillas, government dignitaries and statesmen, and national artists and scientists. This is also the cemetery where the former President Ferdinand Marcos was buried as a hero, as declared by the President Rodrigo Duterte, that sparked controversy and received public protest.
Fort Santiago served as the premier defense fortress of Spanish government during their rule of the country. Became a main fort for the spice trades to the Americas and Europe for 333 years. Fort Santiago and its beautifully landscaped grounds on the bank of the Pasig River makes for a wonderful escape from the bustle of a big city, which has also made students like us visit this historical landmark.
Intramuros and its walls. From when the city was founded in 1571 until the end of the Spanish rule in 1898, Intramuros was Manila. The name Intramuros means inside the wall. For 400 years, Intramuros served as the center of the Spanish occupation, originally built to be the residence for Spanish government officials and their families. The pentagonal walls, 7 gates, and small plazas that distinguish Intramuros from the surrounding Malay and Americanized districts of Manila have been restored, together with a few period houses. Intramuros served as the seat of government of the Captaincy General of the Philippines, a component realm of the Spanish Empire, housing the colony's governor-generals from its founding in 1571.
The Manila Central Post Office Building, most commonly known as the Post Office Building, is the main postal office of the city of Manila. It is located in Iwasang Bonifacio, Magallanes Tribe, Intramuros, Manila. The building was built by Filipino architects Juan Marcos Arellano and Tomas Mapua in the 1920s. The post office building has a neoclassical structure that became the basis of its declaration as important cultural property by the National Museum on November 23, 2018. The building was partially destroyed during the Battle of Manila in 1945 but was rebuilt 5 years later. In front of the post office building, a city square that contains a bronze statue of Andres Bonifacio and a fountain can be found. This is called the Liwasang Bonifacio or Bonifacio Square, also formerly known as Plaza Loton. Historically known as the Plaza del Fortin, The plaza was given its current name in commemoration of the Declaration of Independence led by Andres Bonifacio, where a monument stands at the center of the plaza in honor of the revolutionary Katipunan leader. This plaza is also known for being a popular site of protests and demonstrations because it is one of the freedom parks of Manila, where protests and demonstrations may be held without requiring permission from the local authorities.
The Manila Hotel is one of the oldest hotels in Manila and was inaugurated and officially opened on the commemoration date of the American independence. Personally, it was an amazing experience to be able to graduate senior high school in a historical landmark here in the Philippines.
The old legislative building, presently known as the National Museum of Fine Arts, is an example of neoclassical architecture. It is located in the eastern part of the Rizal Park in Manila. Originally designed by architects Ralph Harrington Dewan and Antonio Toledo, the building plans went under many revisions before finally being built under the supervision of Pedro Siochi and Company. In 1935, the proclamation of the Commonwealth of the Philippines and the inauguration of the President Manuel L. Quezon were held outside the building. It would serve as the home of the Commonwealth Congress until 1945. The building became home to the National Assembly of the Philippines and became known as the National Assembly Building. During World War II, the building got destroyed, but with the inauguration of the Republic of the Philippines in 1946, the building was reconstructed to serve as the home of the Congress and became known as the Congress Building. Upon the declaration of the martial law in 1972, the Congress was dissolved and the building was closed. Under the 1973 Constitution, it became home to the offices of the Prime Minister, the Ombudsman, and the Sandigan Bayan, and was shortly known as the Executive House. In 1998, it was turned over to the National Museum of the Philippines, and on September 30, 2010, it was declared as a National Historical Landmark. Its rich political history and art collection that includes the spoliarium and the Parisian life makes it a popular go-to destination.
The Bagong Bayan, also known as Rizal Park, is one of the famous landmarks here in the Philippines and has been the site of the most significant moments in the Philippine history. The execution of Dr. Jose Rizal on December 30, 1896 sparks the fire of Philippine revolutions against Spanish colonizers, thus making him a hero of Philippine Revolution and the national hero of the country. Since Rizal Park is a public park, it has a light and sound show open for the public that show magical interplay of various colors created that lights hits the water and an additional combination of music.
Inside the walls of Intramuros, we are about to witness the mother of all churches, cathedrals, and basilicas of the Philippines. The Manila Cathedral Basilica is the premier church of the Philippines because of all the churches in the archipelago. It was the one chosen to become the cathedral in 1581, when the Philippines was separated from the Archdiocese of Mexico and became a new diocese with its episcopal seat in Manila. The cathedral was initially built as a simple parish in Manila in 1571 by Juan de Vivero, a secular priest, and was dedicated to Our Lady of the Immaculate Conception. From 1581 to 1958, Manila Cathedral was reconstructed several times due to destruction caused by war, fires, typhoons, and earthquakes. After learning about the different historical sites and landmarks in the Philippines, you might miss going outside, seeing different things, seeing different people, experiencing history of the Philippines through historic sites. But as much as we want to revisit all these places, we cannot do so because of the pandemic. All we need to do right now is to stay home, be safe, and to remember that there's always a sunrise after every sunset.